When was the last time you read a book from cover to cover? Now, if you asked me this 2 years ago, I would have said maybe when I was 7 or 8, basically back in my childhood. I actually watched YouTube from a very early age when I was like 6 or 7, but I also still read books at the same time. I used to watch the standard Minecraft YouTubers back in the day, so like Dan TDM, Stampy Longhead, Popular MMOs, basically kind of almost an iPad kid in the sense that I was very early, didn't watch normal TV, and I watched a lot of YouTube, especially gaming videos, because that's kind of all I did. But I also did read books. I remember I used to go to the library with my mum, and I had my little library card, and I'd go and get the book I'd like to read it there for a little bit, and then come back home. And I remember I used to read a lot of like kind of spy books, kind of miniature like novels on like spy stories, kind of similar to James Bond. I was quite into that back in the day. Yeah, so my attention span wasn't completely fucked, even though I was watching YouTube from an early start. But as I grew older and went into secondary school, 12, 13, 14, 15, I just stopped reading books. And it actually went in reverse. I'd actually hated books. And that's probably the same for a lot of other people. We used to read books when we were a lot younger, and then as we got older, we had less time, and then we kind of grew resentment to it. And I think the main reason because of that is school. I think school put a negative spotlight on reading, because when you were at school, you were forced to read this book and then study it, because if you're taking English as a subject, you'd have to know all the quotes and all this kind of stuff, and they kind of shoved down your neck. You need to read this, you need to read that. That was partly why I grew resentment, because I was like, I have YouTube, I don't need to read books, etc. This is really bad, because so many people now just think books, because of social media now, people think that the best way and the way to consume content is through TikTok or YouTube or Instagram Reels. And it's like, YouTube is a brilliant platform to learn, because there's so much free value out there. And don't get me wrong, it's a great thing to use. But what people don't realize is that books have been around for centuries, literally centuries. YouTube came out in like 2006. So it's been not even 20 years. And so there's obviously a lot of content out there, but there is nowhere near as much information and value and lessons learned by people as those centuries and centuries of books. So there are books out there that you will like. The books that the school force you to read, those are boring unless you're a certain type of person, right? But for most people, the school books that were shoved down your throat were really boring. All you need to do to get back into books is just do something that you find interesting. So like for me, when I was younger, it was the spy novels, it was fiction books. But nowadays, as I've got into self-improvement and found a lot of interest in entrepreneurship, I'm reading stuff on finance, productivity, fitness. And it's like I'm consuming these on YouTube as well, but what I've found is that a lot of the information out there from YouTube is just kind of re-churned stuff from books. And then the question is, well, I find reading books boring, and they literally are, because you're sitting there staring at the text. There's nothing to stimulate you, there's no video games, and there's no movie with explosions and stuff to stimulate your brain visually. It's just text, literally black and white, right? And this is the thing, right? You have to just embrace the boredom. It's very simple. Like, you have to be able to get used to the fact that you don't need stimulating colors and action and everything in your face to be entertained or to take value from something. Just being able to sit and read is a skill. It genuinely is a skill, and it will improve your focus. So you need to take a step back from a lot of stimulating things, and what you'll find is that books are actually kind of fun, in the sense that they can be boring, but if you find the right one or something that you're interested in, it's actually so good. Like, in my daily routine, right, I spend like half an hour, 45 minutes before I go to sleep reading a book, and that is probably like the highlight of my day. Like, I get so excited to that part of my day where I can just sit down, I've done everything, and I can just read the book that I want to read. I'm gonna sound like a nerd, but so that's it's just something that I've kind of fell in love with, because it's something that I like. Entrepreneurship and productivity and all these kind of things, right? I'm really interested in them, so I'm finding out more about them. If you learn how to improve your sleep, right, and you read a couple of books on them, you'll actually do those things, right? Just like the same with YouTube, like you watch the similar content you kind of vibe with and you kind of associate yourself with, because that's who you are, right? So you can do the same thing, but just with books. So you just need to find books that you have interest in, and you are what you read. So as I said, if you actually read something that you like, you'll become that thing. You just need to embrace that boredom with reading. It will be difficult at first. If you've not picked up a book in like 5 to 8 plus years, you will find it hard, especially if you use social media a lot. You're going to find this probably quite hard, to the point where you'll literally read, and I guarantee you, if you've never started reading before, you'll go through this and you'll read a line and you'll be like, your brain will just go AFK, like you read the line but you didn't actually process those words. And that's a very common thing, and that's simply because these days people's attention spans has been completely fried by social media. So the art of focusing on a book is something that you can improve on, and it just takes a bit of time. Like, it's really not that deep, you know. You just it's kind of like meditation, in the sense that you focus on one thing at hand, the text, and you only own the text. It's very easy to get your mind to get distracted on these other kind of things, but you got to start somewhere, right? So just set a goal out. Most importantly, find out what book you want to read. Like, what are you actually interested in? And then just start off by reading one page. Genuinely, like, just start off with like, my goal today is to read one page of a book. And then over time, you will find that you'll just read naturally, like you used to when you were a lot younger. The other thing that I recommend you doing is, if you get bored of a book midway through, because this is something that is very common, just stop reading the book. Pick up another book that you're interested in, because otherwise, if you let the barrier of that book becoming boring, then be like, oh, I don't want to read this book. I've got this reading scheduled in my routine, but I don't really like this book. So then you don't end up reading at all. Bro, like, come on, man. Like, that's then you do. So it's totally fine to read more than one book at once, because most people's interests are quite varied across different areas, and people can change based on their mood and stuff like that. So, you know, like, some days I don't feel like reading, I don't know, some spirituality book on like masculinity, and I'd rather read a book on productivity. Like, you know, just depending on the vibe, I might want to read a certain book. So I read a couple of books at the same time, and that's a totally fine thing to do, and something I really recommend you do, because that way you won't be put off when a book becomes a little bit boring, or your interests start to span or like move towards something else. You can still keep on reading. So hopefully what you can take from this video is that reading is actually fun, and it will be boring in some points, but that is okay. That's part of the process. It's meant to be boring. But as long as you find a book that you're interested in, right? Because as I said, I think school kind of damaged the way of reading, because you were forced to read certain books. So just find what books you genuinely like find fun and interesting, and that's really it. It's pretty simple, and you'll find very quickly that you'll flow back into that process where you used to read. Or if you didn't read at all in your childhood, now's the perfect time to start, because there's so much value out there. There's so much wisdom for you to gain. So if you like that video, hit the subscribe button and like the video. Have any comments on any book recommendations that you have or that you'd like to know of, and yeah, I'll be making more content like this on self-improvement, so stay tuned. All right, peace.